Greetings, groovy people. This is the self-proclaimed Blue Dragon, and it's a Friday night video. Death Becomes Her is the title. That's really not a good one. It's a really weird 90s movie. I think it's 90s. Yeah, with Thanksgiving being yesterday by the posting date, but I'm obviously making this video beforehand, US Thanksgiving. And because I have 2 Thanksgivings to attend and I have to bring food or cook food for both, I've got a lot to prepare for is the long and the short of it. So because of this, I decided instead of continuing the convention discussion as I've kind of been doing on Fridays, I'm gonna take a step back and I worked on this instead. I'll try to get back to that as the focus. I also wanted to talk a little bit about COPA and some things in a Friday video before the end of the year, but we'll see if I get to that. It's not really top on my list. So this week I've opted to color the last page of Dark Horse Act 3, the revamp. That's what's going on in the background. And the topic of discussion is going to be death. I'm nervous laughing. I'm not laughing at death. I kind of do that. I laugh at things that are kind of inappropriate, and I don't mean it as in I'm laughing at it. I hope that explains. I mean, you are smart enough to know that. So I'm using Photoshop CS5, and I opened the video with the grayscale of the Act 3 title page. It was initially in color, but I put it in grayscale so that I could see the value differences between Odysseus's mother, her hair, and her skin tone. I'm taking a little bit of a different route than usual for coloring this page, and spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't been reading Dark Horse, it's free! The links are down in the description, so go check it out if you don't want any of this to be spoiled, and then come back to the video and watch it. I'm only like 70 some odd pages into this. That's not a lot of pages, all things considered. I guess it is. So with this page, I wanted to give Rhonda, that is Odysseus's mother, I wanted to give her kind of something of a eulogy. That's why, the foxglove is included because that's going to be kind of a symbolic thing for Odysseus. And then I also have the callow lily because culturally speaking, at least from my culture, the callow lily tends to kind of represent death. It tends to be used a lot at funerals. It'd be interesting to look that up. If anybody knows anything about why that, or how that became a symbol for death, or what it even means, if you guys have any information on that, please share that below in the comments. I think it'd be fascinating to find out where that stems from. But the foxgloves is important for Odysseus to pay homage to what Odysseus found when he woke up that morning. But, she came to such a sudden end. Her death was very sudden. I wanted this last page to kind of embody a bit more of her personality, at least through the rose-colored goggles that Odysseus would have regarding his mother, since he is telling this act. I chose to use a soft pastel color palette. I wanted my brushes to be very soft for the shading. There's no hard edges for the shading. I really want this image to reflect Odysseus's feelings towards his mother, as it's kind of, going to be one of the last times he really has a chance to think about her, because things are going to he's going to have time to think about her, but once Act 4 comes up, things are going to start moving kind of fast for him. So I wanted this to be gentle and, pretty, a little bit idealized, and act as kind of a memorial for her. There is going to be text over it, but, well, for one thing, this page doesn't post until December 4th, so I didn't want any real terrible spoilers for people reading it. And for another thing, I haven't quite worked out the text 100%. I have notes and I have, what was going to be said, but Odysseus, in spite of his name, is more so to mirror Homer, the historical figure, not The Simpsons. You guys know that. And so I want to make sure that with this closing narration, I have him wording it as eloquently as possible, as well as being informative. I don't know if this looks good or not. It looks okay to me. I liked it. But that is at least my thought process going into the image itself. Another thing I wanted to do was kind of experiment with the outline. As I work on revamping Dark Horse, while I want every page to be as clear as it can be, the story is of course paramount. The art is as well, because the art is what is telling the story. So I'm trying to kind of push my own boundary stylistically speaking. I mean, what I mean, I want to make it visually pleasing to myself and to you, dear readers and viewers. And for that, I'm trying to kind of break out of the box that I've constructed around myself. I mean, I'm pretty well read when it comes to like art from around the world. I've taken a lot of classes, but where I tend to have my failings is actually applying what I've seen and what I've learned. So with this revamp, I'm really trying to push the boundaries a bit. As well as with Act 6, I've been working on action and trying to improve on that, and that's almost harder than this, you guys, but I'm working on it, I am. And I think that the action scenes, I'm going to redo them in Act 3 before I get it ready for print. I'm not going to redo them all, but some of them I want to kind of change, having read a lot of stuff that people have been suggesting to me. I want to kind of change the angles and kind of play with that concept of, you know, like the powerful towering over, you know, like Citizen Kane, you know, some of these screenshots and stuff that are classic. I kind of want to take that and rework the fight scene a little bit in Act 3 before it goes to the printers. Dovetailing on all this, I've been working on the outlines to kind of experiment with that. And as you'll see by the end of the video, I do something different with the outlines, a little bit different. And even when I inked her features, I tried to do, I wanted, instead of having that be just a solid black outline or any solid dark color for the outline, I wanted it to outline her features, and I didn't want it to be colored in. I just wanted that to be white. I wanted it to be a little different. I don't know if it works or not. Let me know. Tell me if you think it looks like shit or not. And on that note, let's talk about death. Yeah, or not. I mean, no, I do want to touch upon this topic. So a warning to viewers who may be sensitive to this subject, or if you've had a loss recently, someone close to you, and if you're kind of not ready to talk about that or hear people talk about it, then, you know, feel free to click away from the video, because I'm going to kind of talk about that. This is going to be a little rambly, even as I wrote it. But, yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about some real life stuff and then some fictional stuff. So I first encountered human death when I was pretty young. I think I was like 8 or 9 when I went to my first wake. So before we even talk about death, obviously death is the precursor to the wake, but I want to talk a little bit about wakes. And what comes to my mind when I think of wakes, there are 2 things. The second thing that comes to my mind is the first time I went to a wake. And that was when I was a little kid. I spent a lot of time with my grandma and my maternal grandmother, and with all of her friends, either going with grandma to their house or grandma, you know, her friends coming to grandma's, and we all lived on the same property. So we saw all these old people. We were around old people a lot. I mean, it's no surprise that my first encounter with death was when I was around 8 or 9, and one of my grandma's best friends' husband, I mean, he was one of her friends too. They had been friends for like ever, like since maybe the 30s or the 40s. And so when he passed away, I went to the wake, and I just remember how, I don't even remember really much of what I felt, but I remember staring at this person's empty shell and just, I don't know if I realized what it all meant yet, but I remember thinking, gosh, they put a lot of makeup on him because you could see the powder. It was very odd, and they'd put they'd put blush on his cheeks, and I just remember being really sad because of how heavy the atmosphere was, and of course it would be. And I don't know that I really fully understood everything, but I remember being sad because everybody else was sad, and it was, I'd had dogs, and pets that have died, so I understood the concept of death. But it was kind of weird, just the whole experience of the wake. And as I've gotten older, my mother and I and my sibling, my sister, we've talked a lot about what we want. I know what my mom's wishes are, and I know from having gone to kind of quite a few wakes, and I kind of take my mom's stance on this, that it feels a bit, of course I'm not speaking for everyone, I'm talking about for us, it feels a bit antiquated and outdated, because we never really felt much closure from it. And I know that some people that's going to be different for, but for us, we both, I don't want people to be sad at my funeral, so my partner, he knows my wishes, and my mom, I don't know who's going to outlive me. They know my wishes. I want it to be more like the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about death and I think about a wake, and that's Finnegan's Wake. That's, the traditional Irish folk song. That's the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear someone talking about a wake. And to my understanding, for those of you who don't know where even the concept of having a wake came from, I am almost certain one of the reasons why our culture, the Western culture, started having wakes is because people were, think about the time period. They were still drinking out of lead cups, and that could oftentimes induce one to almost be in a death-like state, and they were burying people alive. And then people who came out of these states, there were other reasons too, not just the lead cups, but they used to have bells in cemeteries, and they would have a night watchman, and the bell would go down into the grave for someone to ring in case they'd been buried alive. So the concept of a wake, again, to my understanding, started because they were burying people alive. So it wasn't there to get closure. It was to make sure, you keep the body around for a couple days to make sure the person's not going to snap out of whatever has happened to them, and you don't bury them alive. So the song Finnegan's Wake is, that it's funny the way I like that type of humor, because they're taking something that is sad and serious, but they're coming at it and making you laugh at it. There's nothing to be afraid of if you can laugh at it. And Finnegan's Wake is just one of my favorite frickin' Irish folk songs because it's just so funny, and that's kind of how I don't want people to be fighting each other or throwing liquor around at my funeral, but I definitely want it to be fun. I don't even want the body to be there. I just want people to remember the fun times and be recollecting fun things, not crying. So, that's kind of how I feel about it. But again, that's not how everyone feels about it. So don't think that what I'm saying is how I want to go out is something that should apply to everyone. Some people feel like they need the ceremony. Some people need that for closure. I'm not sure I need that. I've been to enough wakes. I've gone to my grandma's wake. I've been around so much sadness, and then I have, some people that I know who feel guilty because they don't cry when they're sad, and then they've got people that they feel are judging them for not crying, and I don't want to make people feel awkward like that. I just want to avoid that whole thing by just having a big old bash when I go out. It's a really difficult topic, death is, so everybody has their own wishes for themselves, and so I'm not trying to shit on anybody's dying wishes. But I'm trying to make sure that as I handle death in Dark Horse, that I handle it well. I mean, I don't want it to be just a callous body count, although obviously with an apocalypse there's going to be a lot of death, there's going to be a lot of bodies. But I don't want, like, the death. I mean, it was kind of, Rhonda being shot was kind of a shock. I tried to kind of have it be, kind of hinted at what was happening, but I don't want it to just be for shock value and used as a gimmick. At the same time, I'm trying to think about what it would be like to lose someone when you're living in a world where survival is not necessarily guaranteed. How much time are you going to have to mourn people's death? Things start to get, pretty intense. So, alright, well, I'm gonna move along. Rhonda's death is supposed to represent a few things. It's the start of Odysseus's loss of innocence. I mean, he's only 16 when she's shot right in front of him. And it's going to be a harsh life lesson for him. A lesson in the sense that in Act 4, we're going to learn why and how they'd gotten kind of careless in their travel. Her death is also to show that the faction is still a threat, even though the war is pretty much over. There are still faction members running around, and not all of them were these scientists with lofty ideals of curing human suffering and illness by filtering out the bad genes, certain genes. Not that that's okay, but, some people try to spin off this concept as a way to heal mankind by preventing certain genes, but it's like there's always going to be illness. Even if we come up with cures, things evolve, so there's really no way that you can really cure mankind of all diseases. But that's how some people try to spin it to make themselves feel like they're above what they're doing, which is really just murdering or selective breeding people. But the point is that not everyone who has joined the faction has done it with even that concept in their mind. Some of them are just, it doesn't matter how you dress it, the filthy underbelly of mass murder and, genocide, it's going to show through. It's going to come through. And that way of thinking attracts people who are sociopathic or psychopathic, or even if you're not, technically a sociopath or psychopath, it just attracts that way of thinking where human life is devalued. So, when she dies and it's at the hands of these kind of just normal looking people, they aren't in lab coats, they're just normal people who think that they're better than other people because they've managed to survive. So, that's kind of, I haven't really delved into that yet, but at the end of Act 3, that's what Rena is talking about. They found the faction members, so that was something that her death was supposed to introduce. And then it's also going to be important in shaping who Odysseus becomes in the future, and it's the start of events that lead him into the clutches of Keisuma. If his mother hadn't died, and he'd had someone, with his concerns and his well-being in mind, and someone to confide in, then the choices that he ends up making in Act 4 and is kind of pressured into making may not have occurred if he wasn't alone. And I'm trying to kind of build on the characters because we're not really seeing how all this is affecting Kana, and Act 4 is going to kind of solidify that she's not just this pure white as snow great person either. She makes bad mistakes and decisions too. So that's kind of where we're kind of going with Act 4, which is stuff that I really did a very poor job of portraying in the Act 2 that's up on Comic Theory. It was kind of what I wanted to get across, that Kana is having this internal battle, but I'll be working on it and making it not like hammering people over the head with it, but not having it be so subtle that it's not actually subtle, it's just not there. So, I hope that moving forward, I'm able to, you know, properly relate these emotions, and I'm trying to do that through use of, you know, both the story and the grayscale, but also through these color pages with the imagery, and I'm trying to work on composition and the color and the text. I probably said color twice. At least that's what I'm trying, you know. Thanks go out to my patrons and donators. You guys know who you are. I really appreciate your support. I mean, I don't even know how to express how much I appreciate that. And thank you guys who are watching this. Adults. No, I'm being obnoxious with that, but it's a hot mess. But yeah, if you like the video, like it, you know, subscribe, do the bell thing, and please, if you do have any thoughts or suggestions on how to visually represent some of these concepts, or if there's something that you think I should read that you think would benefit me, like comic-wise or, you know, story writing-wise, let me know. Share your thoughts, comments below. I have been trying to check things out from the library, and I feel they've been helping me out, especially with the action scene. So thank you to people who have helped me out with that. Peace and love, fare you well, and keep on trucking.